and Jefferson.
That is fun.
Well, the founders left one huge thing out of the Constitution. They left it out because they didn't like it. And they did not want it to develop in the United States. And it developed real quick in the United States. And that is the concept of political parties. Washington hated parties. They all didn't like parties. But with the exception of Washington, they all joined them real quick. I bet you know people, because I know I do, I bet you know people that would rather, here's a guy, as you know, say, this guy is a Republican. I bet you know people that would vote for a stalk of celery if it said Democrat next to its name, rather than vote for an actual human being that is Republican. You know people like that? I bet you do. About 60% of Americans actually are like this. 60% of Americans will not vote for the other party no matter what. They would rather vote for their party, no matter who the heck runs, than somebody from the other side. So political parties play a huge role, and have played a huge role, in American political history. You know, you have a whole sitcom, Politics and Parties, that you're all thrilled about, I know. What is a political party?
What is it?
What's a political party?
It's a group of people with the same ideas on how to do something for the government.
And the purpose of the party is to what? Take those ideas and make them into reality. That political parties exist to unite people with similar ideas and to carry their ideas into policy. If I walk down the street and say, gee, man, taxes are so high. And I'm talking to Jason, taxes are so high. And Jason says, you know what? Taxes are so high. Let's go, man. Let's go have a party about, we're going to complain about taxes. Well, we get the 10 million people who complain about the fact that taxes are too high. That's our right. That's our First Amendment right. We have the right to associate with whoever we want. Then we use our right to petition the government. Dear Senator such and such, taxes are too damn high. Fix it. Lower taxes. Doesn't matter what the issue is. I think a woman should have the right to have an abortion whenever. Who agrees with me? Let's make a party about that. I didn't ask for your opinion. Oh. Well, my opinion, I don't want to know your political opinion. People of different beliefs kind of unite with each other to form these two enormous political parties that try to bring their vision of the country into reality. Parties are a completely normal, natural thing in a democracy. It's how we amplify our voice. Me sitting on the street corner, I don't like high taxes, is kind of pointless. Unless I combine with a lot of other people who share the same concerns as I do. Parties are a means to amplify your concern, to let people know that lots of people have your concern, and through democratic majorities, move that concern into reality. But the founders didn't like it. And the founders didn't like them.
Miss Greenberg, can you please contact the main office, please, or come to the main office, Miss Greenberg?
And the founders didn't like them because they thought it was really bad that people would vote for the stalk of broccoli if he had the right label next to his name than an actual person who happened to think something differently. So they left parties completely out of the Constitution. But problem was, they were coming. Because people disagree on things. You can't eliminate political disagreement. Political disagreement is what democracy is about. If we all got along and thought the same thing, we wouldn't need democracy. Arguing over politics is not the sign of an unhealthy country. Arguing over politics is the sign of a very healthy country. They don't argue over politics in Cuba. You're not allowed. You argue too much about what the Castro brothers are doing, you end up in jail. Arguing over politics is the sign of a healthy society. And at the very beginning, Americans started to fall into one of two camps. Hamilton's camp and Jefferson's camp. These two titans of the Revolution saw the world so completely differently. The fact that they're both in Washington's administration doesn't help matters. So we're going to go through quickly sort of what they believed, and then talk about what they both did for the country, because we owe both of them an incredible debt of historical gratitude. The reason you do syntoms is so we don't have to go into much detail on this. You know it already, or you will know it soon. Hamilton, pro-bank.
Pro-terror.
Pro-terror. Here we go, look at this. This is what it means syntoms.
I said it.
Lose the constitutional interpretation.
Whoa.
Pro-England.
Jefferson was pro-France.
Anti-terror and anti-bank.
Anti-bank.
Straight.
Anti-terror. Strict interpretation.
Blessing.
Strict interpretation. Same. Why am I?
Okay.
You need to learn
The
all
first one you
that.
know it in a second. The other one.
In New England, in the South.
Yeomanry. Oh, Mr. What's
So I don't
yeomanry?
understand. what you're
Yeomanry are those small independent farmers of the South. All right. These are serious issues. So Alexander Hamilton, and I want you to read his story in Johnson's pages. Basically, Hamilton is born in a poverty so extreme that we could not even understand it. Hamilton is born on a Caribbean island. His father left before he was born. His mother, remarried some crook who left also. Hamilton never goes to school. Hamilton grows up running around the wharves and the docks of this poor city town down in the Caribbean. But Hamilton is blessed because, quite frankly, he comes closest to genius, closer to the label of genius, really, than any of the other founders. At the age of 13, a ship from the colonies visits this island in the Caribbean, and the merchants on this ship find Hamilton and are very impressed with the fact that this 13-year-old has the abilities and intelligence that he has. And they say, hey, you want to come with us? And Hamilton says, yeah, let's go. Sure. Hamilton docks and lands in Elizabeth, New Jersey. He lives at what is today Liberty Hall. over on campus of Cambridge University. That's where Hamilton lived when he first came to America.
That's so cool.
Oxwood Halls.
Oh, I've been there. I've been inside.
There's Liberty Hall on the campus of Cambridge.
Oh, I've been there.
Is it that? It's right at the
Is it right there?
Oh,
No.
I've been there recently.
It was a field trip there.
Mister.
Yeah, you probably took
I
a field
went on
trip
the
there
31
for
show.
yeah.
Do you remember the
Yeah.
I went there.
No.
And I went there too.
Elias Boudreaux lived there, the King family lived there.
Yes.
Hey, that's where Hamilton,
Didn't go there.
that's where Hamilton lived. At the age of 14, they sent him to Princeton. He graduated from Princeton at 15. Then he decided he was going to Columbia. He graduated there when he was 7.
Princeton, yeah, right?
Yeah, Princeton University.
Ross. There was a
No, Princeton in New Jersey.
Princeton, New Jersey.
What is town?
Yeah,
Where the town is Princeton, the college is Princeton too. So to make a long story short, Hamilton at the age of 17 has these 2 degrees from some of the best colleges in the colonies. He decides he wants to fight in the War of Independence. Washington, who has no sons of his own, kind of takes him under his wing. He becomes Washington's most trusted confidant.
So, Mister, was that normal for a kid to graduate college so?
No, I mean, it was normal for someone to be, older, no. So he is the youngest person, I think, ever to graduate from Princeton. So at the age of 19, he's one of Washington's most trusted advisors, and he develops this worldview that, quite frankly, he says, there ain't nothing cool about being poor. Being poor sucks. And Hamilton knows because Hamilton
It's poor.
was poor. And he says the goal of a country should be to make as many people not poor as possible. And Hamilton said the only way that you are going to make a country rich and make a country prosperous and make a country modern and successful is to make it into a commercial, manufacturing, banking place. So everything that Hamilton does is along this line of turning the United States into this trading republic where we manufacture stuff and trade it and bank it and save it and invest it
And not be poor.
and not be poor. That is Hamilton's gig. Yeah.
Did his mom ever go there from him?
No, his mom died and he never saw his mother again. Yeah. He didn't care really. That is why, if we look at Hamilton's vision, where he's coming from, he says, look, the United States needs a central bank. The United States needs to be able to establish a bank where it can hold its money, where it can lend money when it needs to, where it can borrow money when it needs to. The United States needs a central bank. Because you can't, if the United States wants to borrow money to do something, it needs good credit. The best way to have good credit is to have a nice central bank where everything's in one place, the government all collects all its taxes, puts it in one place. The credit of the country is the most important thing. We're not going to talk much about it, but I want you to make sure in your reading, Hamilton restores the credit of the United States. Remember we talked about all those paper money that was worthless? Hamilton came up with a plan to make that money worthy again and to reestablish the credit of the United States. America's credit stunk when Washington took office. Washington says to Hamilton, he's in his 30s still, he's 30 years old, says to Hamilton, hey, Alex, how can we restore American credit? Hamilton comes up with this plan, but here's the problem. Remember we said yesterday, I'm going to talk about this a little more than I thought. Remember I said yesterday that you could buy $100 in paper for $2 in gold?
Yeah.
Okay. I want you to, now, let's say that Karaima is a farmer. She's holding on to a $100 piece of paper, okay? But it ain't worth much. So here comes Mr. Wealthy Investor. Hi, Karima. I'll give you $2 in gold for that $100 bill. You take it? Now you think about it. I come back a month later. It's worth $1.75 now. You gonna take my $1.75? If I come back in a month, you don't even know if it's gonna be worth anything. You got a whole family. Look at all these daughters you have over here. You want to take that $1.75 in real gold? You can buy anything with that real gold. I'll just take. It's worth this. Give it to me. I'll take the $100.
Why you want the $100 so much?
Don't you worry about that.
Well, why you want it?
Because it's an investment. I'm offering you $1.75. All right, come on, see you.
Okay, bye.
3 months later, I come back. Inflation has gotten worse. Will you take $1 for it now?
Well, now I will, because there's
All right.
inflation.
Now I give her $1 in gold. I have my piece of paper that says 100. I'm wealthy enough to do this. I do this now to Farmer Phillip. I do this to Farmer Lindsay. Thank you.
Watch a couple years later.
I've spent $10 in gold, and now I'm sitting on $1,000 in paper. Well, what Hamilton does to restore the credit of the United States is says, all right, the federal government will pay full face value of that money. So now I walk up to Hamilton's bank, $1,000.
$1,000 in gold.
$1,000 in gold. Now, who's screwed?
Me?
You're screwed.
Yeah.
But who makes out like a bandit?
You!
Me. But guess what? What has Hamilton done? Hamilton restored America's credit. Hamilton made it possible. Hamilton restored America's credit. Hamilton made it possible for foreign countries and banks to think that, you know what? If the United States borrows money, we'll get paid back. That is an invaluable thing for a country to have.
Do we have that today?
Not as good as we used to. Not quite as good as we used to. That our bond rating has been lowered a little bit because we're $17 trillion in debt.
Trillion, I'm done.
What Hamilton did was pay back the full face value of that paper money. In so doing, pissed off a lot of farmers. In so doing, made a lot of bankers and merchants very, very happy. But in so doing, more important than both of those things, was he made the United States creditworthy again.
But if his deal is to, like, you know, not have anyone poor, you know, what happens to farmers because we're poor?
Well, now, okay, what happens now, Karima? Now, when America's credit is restored, banks can start lending again.
Okay.
Let's say that you are a farmer. We're going to address Karima's question. Karima is pissed off.
I really am.
She is pissed off. Not only did she not even get $2, she only got $1.
I'm wrong.
But now, that doesn't make Karima poor. Karima has the same good land as she had before. She has the same, apple orchard that she did before. She has the same stuff, she has the same value of economic stuff as she did before. So now when Karima says, someone just invented this whole water-powered system for me to, grind grain in 10 times faster. The problem is, I can't afford to do it. But with a functioning banking system now, Karima can go to the bank, take out a loan at low interest. Why do you get low interest? Because the United States is creditworthy. Now you get a low interest loan on favorable terms, you build your water wheel, and now you're richer than you were at the beginning. That would be Hamilton's counter-argument, that there is nothing better for economic growth than good credit. If you want to invest in a car, you need good credit. If you want to buy a house, you need good credit. If you want to go borrow $1 million to start a business, the bank ain't going to give you $1 million to start a business unless what? You got credit. Well, what Hamilton did was restore the country's credit. In 1803, now, pissed off a lot of people doing it, I promise, that in large parts of the country, Hamilton's name was dirt. But he wants a bank to be able to do those sorts of things. He wants a tariff to protect American manufacturers from foreign competition. He's pro-England because England is the world's greatest trading country. He wants to copy England. If Hamilton had his way, there'd be no states, no federalism, a very powerful executive. It would almost look like England. And a lot of people said Hamilton is a secret monarchist.
Done.
Yes.
He doesn't like the Constitution. He dealt with the Constitution. But remember his goal. His goal is to create this trading, commercial. He favors a loose interpretation of the Constitution. He says, the Constitution doesn't say that Congress can make a bank. But it also doesn't say it can't. So if it doesn't say you can't, you can. That's like your mom says, you are grounded, you cannot go to the mall, you cannot go to the movies, you cannot go to the park, you cannot go ice skating. Ha!
Should have said I couldn't go roller skating.
Damn it. That's Hamilton. If it's not specifically prohibited,
You can do it.
it's allowed.
True.
Jefferson is completely different. Jefferson is a romantic.
Monica.
Jefferson is born to not incredible wealth, but Jefferson never knew poverty. Jefferson is classically educated, goes to the best schools, reads the best books, speaks Latin, speaks Greek,
Whoa.
writes in both languages, he's a scientist, he reads all the books that you're supposed to read. And Jefferson kind of comes to this conclusion that America is, that Hamilton's version of America, Jefferson thinks that Hamilton's version of America is going to lead to a country run by rich bankers, run by rich manufacturers, for the benefit of rich bankers and rich manufacturers. Hamilton says it is much more important that the country is free than the country is rich. And Jefferson says only farmers are truly free people. Because if you're a manufacturer selling boots, what are you dependent upon?
People.
Someone buying
The
boots. You are dependent on the bank. You are dependent on international trade. You are dependent on a navy to protect it. Jefferson says that's not freedom. Jefferson says only a man who gets his hands down in the dirt and grows his own crop is truly free.
Is that a real quote?
No, but that's what he believes. Jefferson was a farmer. He was a planter. He had thousands of acres of land producing crops. He believed that the less you had a bank, the less manufacturing that went on, the more strictly you interpreted the Constitution, the freer the country would be. Because if Philip's big giant ball of liberty is there, the more and more stuff that government does is going to make his ball of liberty smaller and smaller and smaller. Jefferson does not want the country dependent on a bank, does not want the country dependent on manufacturing. Jefferson envisions in his mind a whole country of small, independent farmers, like Virginia, ruled by guys like him, an elite, where everybody put their hands in the ground and grew crops. And he said, look, trade is fine. If you want to trade, awesome, cool, but you can't build a country around it. He was pro-French Revolution. Jefferson hated arbitrary authority, he hated kings, he hated bankers, he hated industrialists. Jefferson wanted this agrarian farmer's republic, where the average farmer gets up from his plow, votes for his leaders, educates himself, and goes back and grows his crop and lives between the ground and God.
What does it mean when you have pro-France?
In terms of which of those European rivals do you prefer, England or France? He's pro-France. Jefferson is pro-France.
Yes.
Jefferson, one of the things that's ongoing that you'll read about, one of the things that's ongoing is the French Revolution. The French Revolution kicks off in 1789 and turns into an absolute bloodbath within a few years. It is not a successful revolution like the American Revolution is. Jefferson defends the bloodshed in France much longer than just about anybody else. When most people are turned off and sickened by it, Jefferson is still kind of supporting it because he sees it as the tree of liberty has to be watered with the blood of tyrants every once in a while, Jefferson says. Jefferson is a very complicated guy. Cool guy. Very complicated guy. And that's why I want you to read those couple pages in Johnson, because Johnson does, one of the best things about Johnson is he does this amazing job at illustrating characters in just a few pages. Jefferson is very complex. Complex to the point where it becomes easy to call him a hypocrite. But that's too easy. I see your hand.
How are the friends? Oh,
Go ahead.
Did they ever like battle?
Who?
Them.
They were
Hamilton and
friends.
Jefferson.
Oh,
So,
wasn't there a rapper?
the two of them, thank you. That's going to advance my lecture here. The two of them were together in Washington's cabinet. Hamilton is the Secretary of the Treasury, which makes perfect sense. Jefferson is the Secretary of State, which makes perfect sense. And they are agreeing on nothing. They are making Washington's life very difficult. Washington does not like parties, and he is seeing his own administration divide itself into Hamilton's guys and Jefferson's guys. Now, Hamilton thought Jefferson was a moron. He said, "You are a romantic fool." He says, the only reason you like farming is because you've never actually had to do any farming. Like slaves do it your whole life. The only reason Hamilton says to Jefferson, the only reason you kind of lionize this poor farmer is because you ain't ever been poor. If you had been poor, you wouldn't like it. Jefferson said to Hamilton, you are a cynic, you are a monarchist, you want to bring back the king. So the two of them had they remained personally, I don't want to say friends, but they were personally civil.
Acquaintances.
I'm sorry?
They were frenemies, like, you know, like.
Yes, they let other people do the attacking for them. Jefferson would say to his guys, attack Hamilton, and they would do it. Jefferson would still be kind of friendly, but they both did. That's how it was done. That's how it was done. They could still exist together. Yes.
Did people know though? Like say like there's a crowd of people and say he's Jefferson and say I'm Hamilton.
Right.
And I tell Anthony to talk about him and he tells him to talk about me. Does Stephen know that we hate each other?
Yes. Stephen knows that you have public disagreements.
What?
Stephen knows that you differ on things politically.
But he
But
doesn't
the
know that
two-
we're like.
No, that everyone knows that Gotta's newspaper is a Federalist newspaper that attacks Jefferson. And everyone knows that Stephen's newspaper is a Jeffersonian newspaper and it attacks Hamilton. But it's this division, guys, that leads to the creation of political parties. Because what happened was, although Washington was from the same place as Jefferson, he was a Virginia planter, Washington, I'm almost done, Washington found himself agreeing with Hamilton on almost everything. And Jefferson started, and it got to the point where Jefferson felt that he could no longer serve in Washington's administration because Washington wasn't listening to him. So what Jefferson did right before Washington's second term was he resigned from Washington's cabinet and he created America's first formal political party. Jefferson created what he called the Republicans. He called them the Republicans because he thought that Hamilton was bringing the country towards what? What's the opposite of a republic?
Democrat.
A monarchy. Jefferson calls his party the Republicans because he thought that Hamilton wanted a monarchy. Hamilton's party became known as the Federalists. But Jefferson's party, now this is where it gets confusing as all hell.
The demo Republic.
They're not Republicans like we have Republicans today. This party is the forerunner of the Democrats. Which is why historians, to make it easier for AP U.S. history students, stick the word Democratic in front of Jefferson. Jefferson never in a million years called his party the Democratic Republicans. He just called them the Republicans. We put this word Democratic in front of it to make it easier so you don't confuse it with Lincoln's party, the Republican Party of today. If you, so I'm gonna second to last thing. On the AP test, you will, on a primary source, it won't say Democratic Republicans. On a primary source, it will say either Republicans or maybe Jeffersonian Republicans. But that's not Lincoln's party. Federalists are Hamilton, Adams, Washington. Now, last thing. What do we owe to these giants of American history? In short, we owe the American economy at its heart to Hamilton. Hamilton made the United States into a wealthy country. We owe our political system and our democratic character to Jefferson. We're going to see in Block 4 kind of our political system and our democratic character. We're going to see in Block 4, when Jefferson became president, he actually ended up keeping lots of these things. Alright? But that is for Block 4. Hamilton, Jefferson. Anyone have any questions? Have a great weekend.